Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for all attending. Notice up front, we are recording this webinar. We will send out a notice to anyone who has registered. So in your email, look for a link to a YouTube video, or we'll post-production put this on YouTube, and you'll be able to go back and look at it. And also it'll be available on our website. Want to welcome everyone to our ongoing monthly series of webinars in which we aim to educate and transform and protect our clients and our prospects, their critical infrastructure. Here we are in February of 2025, and we'll be discussing cybersecurity compliance and trends for 2025 as we prepare for the year and prepare for the future. Would first like to begin with some introductions. My name is Bill Bridges. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Incepta Cybersecurity. I've been in the industry for longer than I care to admit, maybe 15 years or so, in various forms of technology, going back as many as 25 years, data infrastructure and data websites and so on and so forth. Joining us and our expert speaker today is John Schlager. John is our president, founder, and CEO of Incepta Cybersecurity. Good morning, John. How are you?
Good morning. Thank you, Bill. All is great.
Yeah, great. Why don't you bring us up to speed for those who don't know you, a little
Sure.
bit on your background and your expertise in the subject matter.
Sure, absolutely. John Schlager, I was the, founder and CEO of Incepta Cybersecurity, as Bill had said, but, I started my career 30 plus years ago now, all of which has been in information technology, and a majority of it has been in information security and cybersecurity. So long career in all of this. I started my career, I worked for a company called US Internetworking. We invented and started application service providers, which essentially is software as a service today. After that, I worked at the EPA's Criminal Investigation Division. I was their information security officer, helped with securing and hardening the EPA CID. After that, I worked at numerous places, but I went to Booz Allen Hamilton as a consultant there, mostly working at the National Security Agency. There, I worked at both sides of the house, the Information Assurance Directorate, which is around securing and hardening the environments of the DoD and IC. And then also, too, on the other side, is the signal intelligence, Edward Snowden type stuff, things that nobody can talk about. But, after that, I was the Chief Information Security Officer for the United States Capitol Police. And then I left there and founded a company called, Oxford Solutions, which became Scout Cybersecurity, which we sold in 2018 to Barracuda Networks. So I started, Inceptus in 2018 to fill those gaps of those things that I wanted to create while I was at, Scout Cybersecurity.
Right. We've discussed this in the past. What I think is great about your background is how for many years you were on the other side. I mean, instead of the provider side for cybersecurity services, you were on the consumption side, right? So you know very well the pains and challenges that our clients and our prospects face. I think
Absolutely.
that's fairly unique, I think, among people in your position.
Yeah, I mean, in the federal government space at the beginning, we had to kind of come up with information security. It was kind of where at the beginning was left up to them to figure it out,
Right,
accreditation,
right.
compliance, all those types of things. So,
Yeah, well, we'll be talking some about compliance later today. Our objectives for today, we're going to be talking about the current state and emerging threats. We'll touch on impacts AI is having in cyber. We'll discuss the top 5 or so cyber trends in 2025. And then we'll get into discussing technologies, tools, and strategies for future-proofing critical infrastructure. Sound good?
that sounds good.
Perfect. So why don't we begin? What is the current state and what are some emerging threats?
Okay, absolutely. So, the current state of cybersecurity here in 2025 kind of has been, seems to be the same as it has been for the last 2 decades almost. Let me say that with a lot of new evolutions in technology. So,
Right.
it's rapidly evolving, driven with AI advancements and increasing cyber threats, stricter regulations. All of these types of things have helped, make this more of a complex, environment, within our space. So we're seeing a lot of trends and those sorts of things to, help fix and collaborate and do things that are going to make it easier in the long run, but it's creating a lot of problems when it comes to cybersecurity, especially around the AI realm of things, and those sorts of stuff. So, businesses, governments, and individuals have to adapt, proactive security measures, and leverage AI responsibly to stay ahead of these emerging threats, to
Hmm.
safeguard digital threats and evolving environments per se. So,
All right.
when we talk, yeah, let's talk about this a little more, so I'll dive into some things around that, in the current state of this type of stuff,
Yeah, give us a snapshot. Where are we right now? Current state.
Yeah, and I've said it a few times already. So, AI-driven cyber threats and defenses, this is kind of a new realm of things. And it's kind of like that cat and mouse games. As they develop, we need to develop. As the attackers get stronger, we need to get stronger.
Hmm.
And foreign nation states and all these people who have the money and all these different types of, advanced languages and things like that help with this type of evolution has created a huge issue. So, there's a rise in AI-driven cyber attacks. Malware is now probably going to become more polymorphic and able to change when it's in an environment with evasion techniques and all those types of things built in. So it's kind of self-learning and self-motivated, to
Right.
do and steal what it wants. Generative AI, which a lot of people use, like in ChatGPT and those sorts of things, are becoming huge in phishing, to help craft those phishing techniques, to help figure out ways to get them in and past people's, guards and security
Hmm.
technologies. Plus, another thing too is expanding attack surfaces and those types of things. And what we mean by that is adoption of cloud. Software as a service kind of has become the norm. A lot of people have gotten rid of on-site technologies and moved to the cloud fully. So with that, your attack surface has increased exponentially there. So, AI with all of those types of things is going to be a huge issue for a lot of people. So I'll talk a little more about that too, like expanding, attack surfaces. When I say
Hmm.
that, I'm talking cloud API security risks. Identity access control is huge. Making sure your APIs are secured. Vulnerabilities in APIs and in web stuff and identity-based attacks are going to be increasing and are, this year. So another part of that, critical infrastructure, IoT, attacks on the energy grid, healthcare systems, smart cities, our homes. These pose significant risks, especially around denial of service and other things like that, actually having access to your home technologies, those
Right.
types of things. Um, yeah, supply chain vulnerabilities, cyber criminals target, third-party providers and vendors to infiltrate their networks. We've seen this with SolarWinds and some other attacks in the past where one affects many. It's usually a better way for attackers to get to more people faster.
Right.
So we'll see that too. And then also too the rise and adoption of 5G. That's going to be kind of a huge both on the attacker side as well as on the defense side because there's new cybersecurity technology, challenges for connected devices for
Right.
those types of things.
There's a shift towards zero trust and decentralized security. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So zero trust kind of is one of those technologies that are going to constantly be checking, are you who you are? Who are you who you say you are? Do you have the credentials? Are you allowed to access this data? So identities become crucial and those sorts of things because they're complex and how it's set up. It's all set up to be never trust, always verify.
Hmm.
So, this will be crucial, especially in AI attacks. So,
Right.
yeah.
And decentralized identity and authentication.
Absolutely. So, all of these kind of play part in all of that type of stuff. So, different types of blockchain-based technologies that are going to be coming out for identities, reduce reliance on, uh, traditional passwords, centralized databases, those types of things. And that's actually extends to the growth of passwordless authentication, which is where we need to get to. People memorizing passwords and always using the same password has caused the pandemic probably for the last couple decades,
Right.
and that's why MFA has been adopted so much lately, is to help combat that. But to get even more, it has to go to certain passwordless authentication.
Right. What are some challenges around quantum computing and the future encryption?
Huge, huge issues. I don't know if most people, you haven't seen this in the news lately, but, with the invention of quantum, type of computing, cryptography could be at risk here. Back a few years ago, certain encryption algorithms would take, millennia to decrypt, and now quantum computing can do it in minutes. So that could be a big issue, especially for VPN technologies and how
Hmm.
we do business to remote access, all those types of things. So, you know, homomorphic encryption and confidential computing are being adopted to secure sensitive data too. So that on the positive side, we have those things that are going to help us with the encryption and those technologies. But, once again, cat and mouse game. They get there first, we get there later. We get there first,
Right.
they'll figure out a way to combat and
The
roll
bad
around that
guys are
too.
getting better and better tools all the time. And unless you're really up on this stuff, right, it's hard for us to stay ahead. It's almost impossible
And
to do
Moore's
it on your
law.
own, anyway,
Yeah,
especially without help from someone who can help guide you and consult along the way, right?
absolutely. And as time goes by, that's going to get faster and faster, so we need to use AI, for those types of things to assist us and help us with those, security, not just cybersecurity, but everything. Our entire lives are about to change. We're at the embryonic stages of AI too. So we're not really sure what's going to happen, who's going to come up with things first, those types of things. So
Right. Uh, you and I discussed earlier the question that a lot of people ask or hear discussed of is AI going to replace humans, right, in everything we're doing? And the general consensus is no, but you want to step into there a little bit?
yeah, I mean, AI potentially will not replace humans. A lot of
Right,
jobs will disappear because AI will take them. They're going to do it better, faster, stronger than we could. But, on the other side of it, AI is going to help, you know, it'll be bad to us, essentially. Once those technologies are there, they can used against us,
right.
and if you have bad AI, it could make misinformation a real thing. So, we see this with the campaigns and
Hmm.
Russian interference and election campaigns, all the stuff that they say didn't happen. They're absolutely doing those things in those environments, utilizing social media and other types of things for that. And AI helps do that almost automatically. So
Right. One quote I saw was that no, humans won't be replaced, but humans that master AI will have a distinct advantage over humans who don't.
absolutely. And if,
Yeah.
if you don't adopt, AI, you will be left behind. Everything is moving in that direction.
Right.
Just like when I started in my career early on in information technology, cybersecurity wasn't even a thing. It wasn't a topic. Just like AI wasn't even a possibility, yet. I mean, we were all
Right.
working on it and those types of things, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that happened quickly
Yeah.
and it's going to happen quicker. So the evolutions in AI are going to happen rapidly once it's
Right.
adopted and started to be used. So if you don't adapt, you will die essentially.
Right. Well, still on our topic of evolving cybersecurity trends, regulatory changes in cybersecurity compliance. What's current state and where are we heading?
Yeah, AI, just think of this. Regulation is a growing business. It's hard to stop all these bad things from happening without people changing and evolving. People hate change. People do
Hmm.
not want to evolve, just like what we were just talking about with AI evolution. People are resistant to that stuff. And, if they do that, that there could be issues. And just with that, AI is changing those things that are needed to protect an environment. And the only way to force people to do that is through regulation. So, privacy laws, compliances, regulations that are out there, we all know all of them. It's growing. There's more coming up every day. GDPR was a big thing probably, I don't know, a decade ago now that now is going to probably be adopted by the world. GDPR like regulations are going to start
Hmm.
coming out to protect citizen data, those types of things. So we're constantly seeing that evolution, and so, tighter global cyber regulations, those types of things to make sure that we're doing what we do to protect ourselves. AI governance and ethics. The rise of these AI powered cyber tools brings ethical concerns as well as regulatory oversight on AI decision making in cybersecurity. So we have to
Right.
be really, diligent on these things because, Terminator is a real possibility, with these things. And a few AIs that they've turned on have turned bad quickly, So if
Right.
we don't have our infrastructures resilient enough to withstand those types of attacks, it could be an issue. So
Right. And how about cybersecurity insurance expansion?
yeah, you have to do this now. If you do not have a cybersecurity insurance policy, that could be an issue. You think about it, it's not if, it's when. An
Hmm.
attack happens, and are you covered? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? A lot of cyber regulations, that are out there are made within the insurance community. Let's just say that. So if you go to get an insurance policy, they ask you, hey, are you running EDR? What kind of email protections? Do you use MFA? Basic questions around security, which could actually help drop your policy, and essentially help protect you.
I
If
was
they're
just
going
going
to,
to
if
say
it ain't,
that they will deny claims if you haven't done your part in protecting yourself.
absolutely. And these due diligence questionnaires that they send out, if you say, hey, I'm running EDR and you're not, and you get attacked, then you're not being, they're just going to
Right.
deny your claim, right?
I saw some applications for cyber insurance questionnaires over 100 questions long, quite detailed. And unless you are really up on everything that you're discussing right now, uh, guessing and saying yes, checking the box, yes, we have this, you're setting yourself up for a
Right.
denial of claim.
And then, if you don't understand the question, you shouldn't be answering it. You have to ask somebody who
Exactly.
understands the question to make sure that you are doing those things, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Let's talk real briefly about the future of cybersecurity workforce and defense.
huge cybersecurity skill gap, that's still there. I don't know how many jobs it is now, but it's constantly an issue, having enough skilled people to do the work that's out there. And that's what's helped leading that, automation and AI driven security solutions. It's to help those analysts do what they need to do,
Hmm.
to support their teams, and this kind of goes directly into like AI augmented security teams. That's how we run here at Inceptus. All of our tools utilize AI or some form of machine learning, to do their job. And, just to keep up with those attacks, we need to have those types of things, to help protect our environment, those types of
Right.
things. So cyber warfare and nation state stuff, that is huge still too. That's, I don't know, geopolitical climate is kind of sketchy right now with our allies and with our adversaries. So it's, everybody's hacking everybody. So I'm sure it's just going to get worse and, more, you know, lead to cyber conflicts, like something that
Right.
we really don't know or have seen yet. But there could be an uptick. And if a foreign nation state is attacking the United States or we're attacking another country, if you live in those countries, you could be a fallout if you don't have those right controls
Right.
and things in place that can help
And not
resist.
just the government. We're talking about private enterprise.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Espionage, corporate, espionage, all those types of things.
Right.
They're going to utilize AI and whomever is. And once it goes back to what you're stating earlier, that if you don't keep up with it, you will be lost. Same thing here. If you don't keep up with AI and utilize it in your own environment, absolutely hackers are going to be using those things that are going to help,
Right.
take over your security controls and make them obsolete. So,
Right. All right. So we're here. We are in the beginning of 2025, and we're talking about the impact of AI in cyber, right? And there's going to be positives and negatives. We've talked a lot about the negatives, but as a Inceptus, helping our clients with defense, there's some positives here. We've talked a little bit about some of the things that we at Inceptus are doing here using AI. Can we talk a little bit more about the positive negatives of cyber,
yeah, well, we'll start with the positives.
AI and cyber? I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. AI specifically. There's a lot of positives around those types of things. And we've seen it in the development of tools and, services that are out there on the internet. These include like threat detection and prevention.
Hmm.
AI powered tools, they help analyze patterns, they detect anomalies, they do, a bunch of things that can helpfully stop cyber threats in real time, which is kind of what we need, especially with a polymorphic malware. You need to have something that's going to be able to keep up with that changing thing to keep defeating that bad code that's in the environment. Automated incident response is one of them. We can quickly mitigate threats, isolate infected machines, do all these things automatically, which used to take time for us back in the day. I should say that's like
Hmm.
5 years ago. You had a ransomware attack, you had to physically hit these machines to get, Sentinel-1 or some sort of EDR on there to stop those types of things. So this will help automate that stuff, improve fraud detection, especially around, you know, financial transactions, financial institutions. If they don't have those types of things and, they're fraud, if you have an AI that's going to defend, you're going to have an AI that's going to attack. So how
Right.
it can figure out to, to defraud you of money, that's a big deal there too. Adaptive security, that's what we talked about earlier, machine learning, a lot of tools. We saw that at RSA about 10 years ago. AI, 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 AI was everywhere, and now it's becoming a reality and they're actually starting to integrate AI like capabilities, not really just machine learning type capabilities.
Right.
Enhanced phishing detection. Our email protections are going to get better. If the AI can scan an email, it's probably better than we are most of the time, especially if you have to do 100 of them. An
Hmm.
analyst can get, bogged down and have alert fatigue from staring at them, and maybe make a wrong decision on a certain email, allowing it through, those types of things.
Right.
Behavioral analysis is another big one. What are those behaviors? MITRE attack framework, MITRE defend framework type things. Having those things that are in there to stop or flag suspicious activities. Preventing insider threats. Those types of things could be huge.
Right.
And something that we use, automated patching management systems that are utilizing AI, to identify vulnerabilities, figure out ways to patch those. Hey, is there a vulnerability that's been out there that's in the common vulnerability database, and is there a patch already for it? If I know that that exists, and I know there's a patch there, do I need to wait to patch that software? We really want to reduce that risk time from a 0 day to where it can actually be weaponized and utilized in the environment. So
Right.
those are some big positives,
Yeah.
from an AI perspective too. So
All right. Well, that
then,
leads us to negatives, right?
yeah, in the negative, let's just think of all these types of
The
things.
list is just as long.
Right, right. It is. And that's what I said. There's a cat and mouse game. There's always positives. There's always negatives to everything here. So AI powered cyber attacks. This is what we fear. Is AI software, AI driven phishing and malware attacks. If your malware is able to think on its own in an environment. If it turns it loose, it could destroy an environment, collect the data that it wants, do whatever. So that's a huge negative to AI right there.
Hmm.
Something also we're starting to see a lot of now is like deep fake and social engineering attacks. You and I talked about this one earlier too, is I think it was $25 million. A Hong Kong based company had their CFO, I think was getting surgery or something. And they had a deep fake AI up there saying, hey, we need to transfer, acted like him, talked like him, did what he
Right.
did, could send emails. And they defrauded the company of $25 million. So that's kind of one of the first utilized. So there's new things that are coming up based on that, evasion of traditional security measures. I've already hit that like 100 times. Like if you have AI and it knows how to get around technologies, because you can train it before you send it out. So every hackers have the same tools that we do to protect and defend, so they can test and try those before
Hmm.
they turn them out there. You know, AI also too, a negative, it can misinterpret stuff and block things based on, thinking that it's bad, even though it's legitimate, normal activities, unnecessary security actions, those types of things that could happen.
False
Uh,
positives.
right. False positives for sure.
Hmm.
Data privacy risks that are out there. Once again, if it knows it's looking for social security numbers, then you probably are going to lose that game unless you have something that's going to help defend about those things. AI, a negative to it, it's expensive right now. It could be expensive to implement. The tools are expensive based on those models that are out there. I mean, like the new, what's that company? I can't think of a deep something. I'm going to draw a blank now, but it's the Chinese version of AI that's going to combat and go against ChatGPT and those types of models. That thing was
Right.
$5 million to build, while ours cost billions, those types of things. So the biggest risk, I think, to us is the weaponization of AI, especially, we always have that trickle down effect with tools, so
Hmm.
nation state actors and cyber criminals are leveraging that now. So eventually it's going to be in the hands of script kiddies and people, and they don't need to know anything to make these tools effective because the tools are effective on their own, so that's probably the biggest, negative to AI.
Wow. Wow. So, shifting gears a little bit, and I know that we'll still incorporate AI into this subject as well, but what would you say would be the top five cyber trends for 2025?
Yeah, and we were kind of already hitting on it. The number one to me is probably AI type powered cyber attacks that are out there.
Hmm.
So social engineering attacks, we're already seeing those. There's a lot of companies that are coming up with technologies to find out and make sure that you are who you say you are. Phishing attacks, like I said earlier, using generative AI, that's a big trend that's going to start happening. Deep fakes, that's another huge one. Ransomware attacks, automation and adaptation of systems for ransomware, that's terrifying. If you have something that's going to be able to bypass all your tools to actually lay and put ransomware down, maybe it'll have an AI to defend itself too, so you can't turn it off,
Right.
unless you utilize that hacker to do that type of stuff. And then another big one too that most people don't talk about, because how good is the model that you're using? If you have a malicious generative pre-trained transformer, a GPT, if it's altered to produce harmful or deliberate misinformation, how would you know that? You're so used to using AI and trusting what it says. How do you know your model's not flawed or the data that it has isn't flawed? That's a big thing there for
Right.
that. But
So AI cyber attacks, that's one trend. Uh,
right.
let's hit maybe four more.
Yep, still supply chain vulnerabilities would probably be number two for me. We had a big one a few years ago. That's a one to many type attack. So
Hmm.
if you can get in there in the supply chain, you can affect a lot of people. We saw that with SolarWinds. There's been a few others that have done that. So if you infect the software that everybody runs to be malicious, then it's malicious, right? That's a huge issue to an organization, from that stuff. Another one, probably critical infrastructure attacks and risks,
Hmm.
that are out there. We all know that's huge. Our water systems, all those types of things are usually help hold or, you know, done by counties, city governments. They might not have the money to defend or do these types of things that are needed, for that environment. So critical infrastructure is constantly at risk. Sewage, water, electricity, all those types of things could be an issue. Um,
Are government agencies at the local level like that? Are they prepared?
I,
What are you seeing on that?
yeah, there's been a lot of things like Center for Internet Security has kind of gone after that to help bring, cybersecurity to these organizations cheaper, so that they can afford those things and they can have those minimal security things to stop and defend their organizations, right? So
Hmm.
we absolutely, city governments are low on the chain when it comes to money, and they're the ones that are controlling the water mostly. And
Right.
Oldsmar, Florida, down here in Florida, close to us, Oldsmar, it ended up not being a hacker, but just think of that. If a hacker could get in, turn up sodium chloride into the water, it'll kill everybody. Release all the sewage dams and allow that to go out, and poison our water system. So if there ever is like a fire sale, against our country, that's exactly what those foreign nation states are going to go after. Critical infrastructure, try to shut down our services to make life hard for us, more difficult to communicate, more difficult to live our normal lives. So
Wow. All right. So that's three.
IoT device exploitation, that's going to be something pretty tricky. I'm surprised we haven't seen a lot of this lately, but everybody has a refrigerator.
Hmm.
We have toasters that are connected. All of these are running probably some, Linux-based kernel or something like that that could have malicious code. Maybe it's built into the processor. All of this stuff is coming. We do not control the supply chain on the development and manufacturing of hardware. Like
Hmm.
that could be a huge issue. Everybody has cameras. How do you know the bad guys aren't doing the same thing? Those types of things. Kind of like the TikTok thing. They're watching us. They're seeing our data. Those types of things. They could be utilizing IoT devices to do that as well. So our foreign adversaries could be a big issue with that as well. And the last one I would say would probably be ransomware evolution, with like once again back to AI and those types of things, with those types of malware that are on there, it could make it more difficult, to do business, especially when it's trying to defend yourself against these types of polymorphic attacks. Once ransomware happens, like I said, if it defends itself, that could be an issue. So
Right. All right. Next topic. As we employ technologies and tools, what are some of the things we can do to future-proof our infrastructure?
yeah,
Kind of,
yeah, let's
we've talked a lot about the bad things. Let's hit towards the things that we can do that to protect us from everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about emerging cybersecurity technologies that are out there right now, and a lot of these are usual the direct, you know, the it's a correlation between AI and what they are trying to do with those AIs. There's been defenses and security measures developed for all those types of things. We're seeing that a lot in the development of AI powered defensive tools. Like I said, EDRs, threat intelligence platforms, endpoint security type stuff, phishing detection, zero trust models, all these types of things have kind of helped with that, and emerging
Hmm.
technologies of cybersecurity. Uh, One big thing that we'll talk about more here in a little bit is regulatory compliance management software. These are new technologies to help keep up with these emerging compliances that are out there, and there's going to be a lot of them. And as they pop up, and once, like you said earlier, how are you going to stay up to date and educated? These are these people's whole jobs and their business, so they have to keep up with it too, but it helps us by knowing what we need to do to stay compliant. And those tools that are out there to help, dedicated software to streamline your compliance process. You can track metrics, you can pull data from systems that you have and artifacts. So
Hmm.
compliance has been a big, you know, pain in the butt for a lot of people for many years, especially if you're a banking system or something like that, you have to go through numerous audits, the SEC, local banking
Right.
regulations, state banking regulators, all these types of things. Everybody has their
Yep.
own, so these softwares will help you make sure you have all those, your I's dotted or your T's crossed to make sure that your compliance and regulatory stuff is straight. So another big one too, like to counteract deep fakes, is those deep fake detection softwares that are out there. There's been a lot of advancements in software that use AI and machine learning to detect and mitigate deep fakes. So, look at TikTok and Instagram and all these videos and of the presidents, dancing. A big one that just came out was all of those people giving the middle finger to somebody. I can't remember, P. Diddy or somebody, like I can't remember, for him saying
Right.
something. But those types of things are real. And how do you determine, is that real or is it fake? And that's what these technologies do,
Yep.
help with that. So that's going to be huge as we move
Yeah,
forward.
I saw a video of Elon Musk, and his lips were not synced up with the video, with the audio, right? And it was they were just using his speech patterns and his video, combining that but they weren't the same, right? It was not him saying this, obviously,
Right.
but they were certainly selling whatever it is they were promoting, and it was definitely deepfake.
Yeah, we saw a lot of it during the presidential election too.
Hmm.
A lot of this stuff, the presidents, the potential candidates saying stuff they never said, and
Right.
we're in this. That goes back to that disinformation campaigns on a lot of sides, not just external or foreign adversaries, but internally. Your competition, like you were saying. The guy that's running against you. The company that's trying to develop the same technologies. All those types of things. So.
Right. How can we integrate AI into our defense strategies?
Yeah, and this goes back to what you're saying. Adopt and adapt, or you will be left behind, right? So just think of it that way. So if we don't integrate these technologies that are coming, that are out there, it's going to be harder for us to detect AI that's out there because it's going to move so quick, make decisions. Before it would just be latent, hang out there, do what it was prescribed to do when it was infected, those types of things. Now, if it's polymorphic, it can defend itself, it can move around the environment. That's going to be an issue. So if you don't integrate these AI defense strategies into your environment, you could be at risk. Automated incident response or remediation, is key to all of that type of stuff. Making sure that if there is an incident or there is something or a security risk in the environment, that it can
Hmm.
be remediated quickly. And this could be in different types of things. There's AI powered firewalls, automated patching systems, all those types of things to help, with those things. So.
Yep. What are some of the other future cybersecurity challenges that you see coming to us in 2025?
And let's break these down. I think I have three that'll probably work here perfectly. The first is which is like post-quantum cryptography concerns. Hacking cryptography is huge. I mean, we rely so much on encryption and cybersecurity that if you have a quantum computing platform that can crack certain algorithms, I mean, our data is highly at risk. So even if you encrypt it, they can take it, they can decrypt it, whatever. That'll be pretty
Mm.
that's pretty scary in and
Right.
of itself. So another one is going to be AI versus AI wars, like as these things are put out there, security teams and hackers both are going to be utilizing AI, so it's going to be this constant digital arms race, like before, like we really haven't seen before. We kind of have, there's cybersecurity technology. I don't know if you guys have seen like the layout of cybersecurity technologies and services, but it just grows exponentially every year. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that same thing is just gonna happen when AI takes over. There's gonna have to be AI defensive tools now and those types of things that are gonna have to be, worked on and developed.
Yep.
And the biggest thing is still cybersecurity skills shortage. AI will not replace cybersecurity in the short term. There's still going to have to be someone to be in the background saying yes or no, from a human perspective. So in my
Right.
lifetime, I don't think we'll see a degradation or a removal of cybersecurity from a human position. But, absolutely, that skills shortage is kind of what's driving AI to help with that stuff. And, if you before a team of 10 could do a major enterprise in cybersecurity, maybe you can do it in two with AI tools, those types of things. So we'll
Right.
see those as they start to evolve too. So
Wow. Great. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about regulatory compliance. So regulation, as we know, and as you stated earlier, it's growing, right? It has the regulations have to adapt and adopt. There's a lot of changes to regulatory compliance and every changing threat landscape. It's difficult for companies to comply with even the minimal security strategy. So this, as we go into 2025, what are some key compliance challenges you see?
okay, we'll talk about compliance challenges. And, there's a few here that probably could help, navigating the complexities of AI,
Hmm.
particularly trusted AI and generative AI. Those, how do you regulate that? How do we make sure, that we're doing what we need to do to protect those things? That's going to be a big compliance challenge.
Right.
Data privacy concerns due to stricter regulations. So as AI gets more and, like we said, it's a growing business, there's going to be more things, line items that we're going to have to do and figure out there too. Data privacy concerns are huge for us. Cybersecurity threats, we've talked about that a million times.
Hmm.
Those are some key compliance. Like we don't know how are we going to combat and defend. So regulation is going to have to constantly evolve to keep up with these different challenges. If the hackers come up with something new, how are we going to defend that? And most people aren't going to do it or know about it. So that's what regulation helps with, is to make sure that you are doing those things.
Right.
ESG compliance, environmental, social governance, geopolitical intentions, those are key challenges. Like we said earlier, increased regulatory divergence, managing ethical issues within workplace, culture. That's a big thing right now, with that, how are we going to make sure, especially with AI doing a lot of jobs, their ethics isn't a key thing for that. It's doing what it's
Sure.
told to do, right? So,
Right. From a strategy standpoint, what are some of the key elements of a good compliance strategy? Let's get strategic for a minute, right?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the first, they already have a list of things that the regulation is trying to say that you need to do, whatever, how many security controls that they say you have to do, those are what you have to do. So the first is a risk assessment. Regularly analyze your potential compliance risks that are out there. You got to
Hmm.
look across your operations, identify areas that need focus and mitigation strategies for each of those. So that's kind of key to the whole compliance structure. You have to base it on something. There's a list of security controls. How are you doing those? How are those implemented? And prove to us how you're doing those types of things.
Right.
Another one would be policy development. This has been the bane of a lot of people's existence for a long time, but policy and procedure development, making sure you have the language as it says based on that compliance regulation, those types of things. So you got to create detailed and accessible policies and procedures and that clearly outline your compliance expectations for all your employees and have to be shared to your employees, have to be shared to partners that you do business with, those
Hmm.
types of things. So that's kind of key. Another foundational thing is employee training. You got to deliver, comprehensive training sessions. You got to educate your employees to, the relevant compliance regulations that are out there. Not just that, but your internal policies, potential consequences of non-compliance. Like, is there going to be a fine if we don't do certain things? We have to keep track of that, as well as security awareness training. Are they up to date, and are they going to try to breed a culture of security within that environment? Compliance monitoring, which has become pretty, because it's so extensive. there's these technologies that are out there and, that will help with those types of things. But, making sure that you implement continuous monitoring systems, to track adherence to these policies and identify potential compliance issues proactively, essentially. So we want to make sure that we are doing those things. And if we aren't, how do we make those changes in that environment to stay compliant with those regulations?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
I said this earlier, a compliance culture, foster a company culture that prioritizes ethical behavior and actively encourages employees to report potential security concerns, phishing techniques and phishing attempts against that organization. The best way to teach everyone is to share it, make sure that everybody knows that it's happening. We see this with security awareness training and faux phishing attacks that, they love to talk and tell everybody that they found it. It's good. That's what we want to do. And we want to have that sharing culture to make sure that everybody knows those latest attacks that are happening there and how to
Right.
defend against them, how to report them, who do we talk to, those types of things.
Right.
Uh, Another one would be the internal audits. Making sure that you're conducting regular internal audits to assess compliance against established standards, so you can identify areas for improvement. Right. Constantly evolving, trying to make sure that you're up to date. Those types of things. Another key element is data protection, right? How do we implement robust data protection measures to safeguard our sensitive information? That's kind of key here. And, we have policies that tell us how we do those things in our environment. We need to stay updated. We hit on this earlier too. Continuously monitoring regulatory changes is huge. We need to update our compliance procedures accordingly and as quickly as possible so that when we stay in compliance with these regulations, especially if your business is highly regulated, new DoD contractors with CMMC, making sure that you're up to date on all those things. And that's taken 5 years to really get into play, and now we're in it. So there's going to be involvement and evolution of that to do. But and then reporting, and communication, establish clear reporting mechanisms for compliance issues, with our customers, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to, let them know that we are doing those things. If they want to look at our policies, we make them available, those types of things. So
Right. All right. So we just talked about key elements of a compliance strategy. How do we make sure that we're maintaining compliance?
yeah, that's huge. And like these new tools that are out there will help with these types of things, but maintaining cybersecurity compliance, it requires a combination of strong security controls, continuous monitoring, employee awareness, all those things that we hit to, adherence to
Right.
regulation, all those things that we hit earlier. But you got to leverage these AI powered compliance tools, automated risk assessments, and adopt a proactive approach to stay ahead of evolving risks and those sorts of things. So some key strategies for that, is like we kind of hit before, the key elements. These are
Mm-hmm.
strategies that you need to implement as a risk-based approach. ISO, use some sort of, CIS critical security controls. Help measure yourself against these types of compliances or, security, things that are out there. Strengthen the data protection and privacy measures. Adopting zero trust principles is key here. Security awareness training is paramount, and developing that culture of security,
Frontline defense.
absolutely. That's your first line. You have all these security controls, and we do that defense in depth. If it gets through email security, if it executes, you'll have, you know, uh, EDR or something to stop that malware from executing. If you have an email phishing attack and you click on a link, is it proxying? Is it allow you to go to that website? Are you putting your credentials in? If
Yeah.
so, you have MFA. Maybe that'll stop that attack. So there's all these layered defense things that we need to do, and people need to know these strategies so that way they can practice them in real life, right?
Right.
So it has to be ingrained in them for daily operations, that type of stuff. So. Yeah, staying updated, regulatory, and preparing for incident response and remediation and ultimate reporting. A lot of these regulations have reporting metrics that you have to report to somebody, snake banking regulators, whomever it might be. There's always something that you have to report. Maybe it's to the people that you have their data. What do you have to do now after there's a privacy issue? You have to, give them credit monitoring, all those types of things. Whatever it is, a lot of these regulations spell out what you need to do, and you need to have those and maintain them and be ready to use them when it becomes an issue.
Right. All right. Anything else you want to add in the maintaining compliance?
I don't think so.
All
I
right.
think that's good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, tell you what, why don't we open it up to our audience and see if they have any questions? There you have a Q&A button on your browser probably, and you can type in a question, and John will be happy to address it. We are running a little bit tight on time. John,
Yeah, and
I
if
don't see
not,
any,
you guys can always
I
send us
don't see,
emails
I don't,
too, you
yeah,
know.
John, tell you what, I'll put it a question. We talked a lot about strategies and compliance. I'll give you a chance to do a shameless plug here. How many of these things can Inceptus help our clients and prospects with?
Well, this is essentially what we do as a business, you know,
Right.
and what we started out to do. So we have a complete stack of security protections and controls when it comes to technology that are out there, but we
Mm-hmm.
also do the vCISO services and compliance as a service, you know, for those utilizing those automated tools that we talked about from a compliance perspective, marrying them up there with security controls, so that way we essentially do, you know, monitoring as and compliance for organizations in real time, you know, to help them with those things. Try to reach SOC 2 type 2, you know, all those types of things. So we have a complete strategy around cybersecurity to help with all of these avenues,
All right.
you
So
know.
it's not just an academic discussion we've spent the last 45 minutes on. I mean, this is, we put our mouth where, you know, our strength behind, you know, the words that we say, and we have solutions to address all these issues, right?
That we know of, right? Let's just
Yeah.
say that, you know, and as it evolves, we come up with new solutions, you know, and those types of things. So, you know, we've been a compliance policy and procedure shop for a long time, and you know that's been pretty manual, you know, risk registries and making sure your policies and procedures are up to date. But now with these tool sets that we have, it makes it way easier to track, make sure you're doing that annual revision histories. Are you doing your pen testing when you're supposed to? You know, so there's a lot of things that happen automatically for us that
Hmm.
triggers certain events that we can make sure that our customers stay compliant within those boundaries essentially. So
Very good. Well, I don't see any questions from our audience, so why don't we just wrap it up with a couple of key takeaways? Why don't you do a little recap for us?
okay, well, yeah, let's talk about 2025 cybersecurity landscape. Rapidly growing, you know, it's driven by AI and advancements, increasing cyber threats, and stricter regulations, right? AI
Hmm.
driven cyber threats and defenses. We talked about expanding attack surfaces and emerging threats. We talked about the shift towards zero trust and decentralized security, quantum computing and future encryption challenges that are out there, regulatory changes and cybersecurity compliance. We talked a little bit about the future of cybersecurity workforce and defense as well. AI positively and negatively affects us, right?
Hmm.
Positively through tools, better, faster, stronger, make us better, you know, and help defend our organizations. But then also too, the negative, it's used against us, you know. So not only do we have these amazing tools to help protect, now we have to worry about them attacking us as well. Uh, there's a lot of new tools that are coming out to combat, and they're starting to come in, you know, and AI adoption must happen. You know, you have to have these tools to keep up with these latest threats that are out there too.
Right.
Uh, because of AI, regulation is going to change and it's going to become more taxing. You know, there's going to be whole new sections probably in compliance and regulations around AI and how to defend against those things within an organization, right? We talked about maintaining cybersecurity compliance regulations. You know, it requires a combination of strong security controls, continuous monitoring, employee awareness, adherence to those regulations. You know, they need to leverage, you know, organizations need to leverage AI, right? Essentially, too, to keep up with those things, utilizing compliance tools, help automate risk assessments. You know, we're seeing that too with penetration testing. A lot of these tools are AI driven now, and you
Right.
don't really need an attacker to do those types of things for those things. And you need to adopt a proactive approach to stay ahead of evolving threats and regulatory changes, you know, essentially. And then the last thing we kind of talked about too, compliance is an ever-changing and growing vertical, like we said 100 times. You know, it says we all need to keep up with new regulations and changes, you know, especially if we're regulated by them. But even if you're not, you should be using some sort of security framework to secure your environment. Even if you're not mandated to do it, it's always good to measure and adopt that risk-based approach like we talked about too. You know, and these changes are not really known yet because the threats from AI haven't really, you know, come. They're still ethereal. You know, we don't really know how it's going to be used against us. We're seeing it a little bit, but nobody has really developed anything that's crushing yet. But don't think for a second that nation states aren't working on those types of things too. And then, like I
Right.
said, tools, for regulatory compliance software, it makes this easy, automatic. I don't say easy, it's not easy. It's just as difficult, but you have to understand it. But yeah, it helps organize and make sure you're staying up to date with each of those regulations. So.
Right. Well, John, we've covered a lot of ground here today. Thank you so much for sharing with us your knowledge and expertise and just things that we're seeing here coming to us in 2025. We want to thank our audience for being with us. This again will be posted and on YouTube. You'll see a link to that in an email that you receive if you registered for this webinar. Once we get through post production, give us a day or so to get it out, and you'll be able to review it, send it to colleagues, that type of thing. And also, you'll have a link on our website to prior webinars that we've had. John, give us the website.
HTTPS www.inceptussecure.com.
Thank you very much. And you'll see where you can navigate to look at past webinars. And look forward to our announcements coming up. We try to do this monthly, hit almost every month, so we'll have a March edition in our series. And want to thank everyone for attending. And John, thank you again for your time. And we're wrapping it up on time. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.